The Mongol sapper crouches beneath the thick cowhide screen, chipping away at Kaifeng's massive stone wall with his iron chisel. Around him, dozens of his comrades work in the protective niches they've carved into the wall's base, safe from arrows, safe from boiling oil, hidden from the defenders above. The leather shelter above is 3 layers thick, proof against anything the desperate Jin can throw down. He's done this 100 times in 100 cities. The wall will fall. It always does. Then he hears it. A strange hissing sound, growing louder. Something metallic, scraping against stone. He looks up, just as an iron sphere the size of a man's head descends on a chain through a gap in the shelter. Someone shouts a warning, but there's nowhere to run. The sphere detonates with a sound like heaven splitting open. The iron casing doesn't just burst. It shatters into hundreds of razor-sharp fragments traveling faster than arrows. The cowhide screen, designed to stop stones and fire, disintegrates. The fragments tear through armor, through flesh, through bone. When the smoke clears, there's nothing left of the sappers or their shelter. Not even a trace. The Mongols have never seen anything like it. And the Jin defenders have dozens more. The year is 1232, and the greatest military machine in human history has met a wall it cannot break. The Mongol Empire, led by Ögedei Khan, son of Genghis, has been at war with the Jurchen Jin dynasty of northern China for 21 years. Beijing fell in 1215. The Jin capital relocated to Kaifeng in Henan province. For 2 decades, the war ground on, but by 1230, the end seemed inevitable. The Mongols had perfected the art of siege warfare by capturing Chinese and Persian engineers who taught them to build trebuchets, siege towers, and mining techniques. In 1232, the legendary Mongol general Subutai, veteran of campaigns from Korea to the gates of Vienna, architect of victories that would reshape Eurasia, converged his forces on Kaifeng. 2 Mongol armies under Ögedei and his brother Tolui had defeated the main Jin field army at the Battle of Sanfengshan. When both Khans fell ill and Tolui subsequently died, command passed to Subutai. On April 8, 1232, his forces surrounded Kaifeng completely, constructing siege lines with a perimeter stretching 87 kilometers around the massive city. Inside the walls, over 1 million people, including refugees, and approximately 40,000 defenders under Emperor Aizong. Standard Mongol siege doctrine called for systematic reduction. Starve them, bombard them with trebuchets, mine the walls, wait for plague and despair to do the rest. Subutai had done this countless times. But Kaifeng's defenders possessed weapons the Mongols had never encountered at this scale. Gunpowder had been known in China for centuries. Fire arrows, arrows with gunpowder packets attached, had been used since at least the 11th century. Soft-shell bombs made of paper or bamboo had terrorized enemies for generations with noise and fire. But these were psychological weapons, terror devices. They rarely killed in significant numbers. The Jin engineers at Kaifeng had made a critical modification that would change warfare forever. They put the gunpowder inside cast iron. The weapon was called the zhentianlei, the heaven-shaking thunder bomb, or thunder crash bomb. The physics were elegant and devastating. Previous bombs with soft casings would rupture immediately when the gunpowder ignited, releasing pressure in a flash of flame and smoke. Iron casings were different. When the powder exploded inside cast iron, the gas couldn't escape immediately. Pressure built to enormous levels, hundreds of times atmospheric pressure, until the metal itself failed catastrophically. The iron didn't just crack. It shattered into hundreds of jagged fragments, traveling at lethal velocity in all directions. This was the world's first true fragmentation weapon. the ancestor of every hand grenade and artillery shell that would follow. Eyewitness accounts recorded that the explosions could be heard for 30 miles. The blast radius burned everything within roughly 1/6 of an acre. The iron shards could penetrate Mongol lamellar armor completely, killing horses and men alike. The Jin deployed them with tactical sophistication. When Mongol siege engines approached, thunder crash bombs launched from trebuchets would obliterate them. When sappers tried to mine the walls under protective screens, Jin defenders tied iron chains to the bombs and lowered them directly into the excavations. The legendary cowhide shelters that had protected Mongol engineers at a dozen sieges were shredded along with the men inside. Historical sources note that after such attacks, not even traces of the victims remained. But the Jin had a second weapon equally terrifying: the flying fire lance. These were bamboo or paper tubes over 2 feet long, packed with gunpowder, sulfur, charcoal, saltpeter, iron fragments, and ground porcelain. When ignited, they shot jets of flame over 10 feet long, essentially proto-flamethrowers, while also projecting burning shrapnel. Jin infantry wielded them like flaming shotguns, devastating to massed troops at close range. Each soldier carried a small iron pot with hot coals to ignite the fuses. In one engagement, 450 Jin troops armed with fire lances launched a surprise night raid into the Mongol camp, killing hundreds before the attackers could organize defense. The combination was psychologically crushing. The history of Jin records that thunder crash bombs and fire lances were the only 2 Jin weapons the Mongols genuinely feared. These weren't the invincible horse archers who had crushed every army from the Pacific to Eastern Europe. They were infantrymen facing weapons that turned their protective equipment into liabilities and made approaching the walls suicidal. Subutai was forced to adapt. He couldn't assault directly. Instead, he tightened the blockade and waited for starvation and plague to do what explosives couldn't. The siege dragged through the brutal summer of 1232 into a harsh winter. Inside Kaifeng, supplies vanished. Plague ravaged the packed population. People starved. By late 1232, Emperor Aizong recognized the inevitable and fled with his court to Kaizhou, leaving General Kui Li to negotiate surrender. On May the 29th, 1233, over a year after the siege began, Kui opened the gates. The Jin dynasty survived 2 more years, finally extinguished in 1234 when Mongol and Song forces captured Kaizhou. But the technological cat was out of the bag. The Mongols, master adapters, immediately began incorporating gunpowder weapons into their own arsenal. Within decades, these innovations would spread west through Mongol conquests to the Middle East and Europe. The Thunder Crash Bomb didn't save the Jin dynasty, but it bought them precious time and demonstrated that even the greatest military force could be checked by revolutionary technology. The age of gunpowder warfare had begun, and the world would never fight the same way again.